Yahoo News, 26 October 2022, the Canadian RCMP is looking into Chinese police stations that aren't allowed in the country. China has set up hundreds of police stations around the civilized world to harass and scare Chinese refugees and take them back to China against their will. They also do this to anyone who says bad things about China. This comes after the human rights group Safeguard Defenders, which is based in Spain, said that there are more than 100 of them worldwide, including 3 in the Greater Toronto area in areas where most of the people are Chinese. In Markham, they have a house and a 1-story business building. In Scarborough, they have a convenience shop. In most countries, we think it's a network of people like a spy agency rather than a real police station where people will be dragged into, said Safeguard Defenders campaign head Laura Harth. International law says it's totally against the rules. It's a terrible breach of territorial authority. When asked about these stations by CBC, the Chinese embassy told a lie that local governments in Fujian, China, had set up an online service platform to help Chinese people living outside of China. The COVID-19 epidemic has made it so that many Chinese people living outside of China can't get back in time to update their Chinese driver's licenses and do other things, the statement said. For services like renewing a driver's license, you need to have a physical exam, hearing test, and eyesight test. The main goal of the service station abroad is to help Chinese people living outside of China with this for free. The embassy said that the overseas service stations are run by volunteers who are not Chinese police officers and are not involved in any criminal investigation or relevant activity. But a lot of them are known to be Chinese spy agents. But Safeguard Defenders said there is proof that people linked to these stations have been involved in threatening and persuading Chinese citizens suspected of committing crimes to go back to China to face criminal charges. Communities may be harmed or intimidated by foreign states, RCMP. In a statement, RCMP said they are investigating reports of criminal activity in relation to the so-called illegal police stations. CBC News has not been able to confirm this. The RCMP also said it considers threats to the security of individuals living in Canada very seriously and is aware that foreign states like China seek to intimidate or harm communities or individuals within Canada. Conservative MP Michael Chong said this was an outrageous attack on Canada's independence. There have been threats made against people in China who are fighting for the rights of minorities, like Uyghur and Tibetan people. He said that these stations give Beijing another way to watch on and control Canadians in the Chinese community and Canadians who value their freedom. Right away, the government needs to do something. They should at least conduct an official démarche against the Chinese ambassador to Canada and make our anger known strongly. Going after fraud suspects abroad. There were reports of threats and intimidation, but the Chinese embassy statement didn't address them. Earlier this year, China's state-run newspaper Global Times said that 230,000 people suspected of telecom fraud were persuaded to return to China from overseas to confess crimes from April 2021 to July 2022. We all know that the Chinese government won't tell them no. Instead, they'll use force and trickery to get them to come back. Law in September. Its goal is to fight telecom and online scams in China and worldwide. There may be people who are guilty of crimes against money. Harth also said that these kinds of campaigns have been used to go after dissidents, government critics, and even people in the Communist Party who might have stood up to President Xi Jinping. She said that in these kinds of operations, family members back home are bothered and threatened, and covert spies are sent abroad to talk to the target directly and force them to come back home. The worst-case scenarios are those where they even lure or entrap people to a third country, from where they can have them returned, or even kidnappings. Dissidents in China are afraid of being attacked and jailed. After the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre, journalist and human rights activist Sheng Shui fled to Canada to avoid persecution. Since then, the Chinese Communist Party and its agents have been harassing her all the time. She said that Chinese officials have regularly gone after her online for her activism. In 1996, when she went to Beijing to see her mother, she was arrested, and in 2008, she was arrested in Hong Kong. Shui said that she had to leave both times after being held. "They want to make me look bad. But since I'm in Canada, they can't just kidnap or kill me like they do with many of my friends in Thailand, Vietnam, or Hong Kong," she said. But, now the Chinese police station is here, just a few kilometers from me, so I am asking myself, where else can I escape to? Shui said that some Chinese people living in Canada might choose to work with Chinese authorities because they are afraid for their family members back home. Uyghur activist Truki Terdush says that many people in her community in Canada are scared to speak out against China's treatment of the Uyghur Muslim minority because they don't want to upset their family in China. The Raoul Wallenberg Center for Human Rights in Montreal and a think tank in Washington, D.C., wrote a study in 2021 that said China bears state responsibility for an ongoing genocide against the Uyghurs. It talked about horrible crimes like forced sterilizations, rapes, abortions, and putting whole families in jail. China has rejected the claims and said that the crackdown on Uyghurs is meant to fight extremism. But everyone in the world knows this is a race slaughter like what happened in Tibet.